Welcome to the September 16th, 2019 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. First item here on the agenda is public comment. If someone out there wants to come up, make a comment. Long line is forming here. Okay, we have no takers. Let's go to number 2, and it's hazardous materials storage. And this is a case that's located at 211 Mid-Tech Drive, and it's associated with the Hyannis Yacht Club. Some specifics here has to do with Unit E, F, G, and H, followed by storage of hazardous materials within the Aquifer Protection District. Director Murphy, anything you'd like to tell us what our responsibilities are tonight?
I'm going to defer to our hazardous waste inspector, Carl Lawson.
Okay, why don't you just give us an introduction, and then after the presentation, maybe the board can ask you some questions as well. Why don't you just give us a brief take on what we need to do tonight as a board, okay?
Okay. Carl Lawson, hazardous waste inspector with the health department. So Hyannis Yacht Club is occupying 4 units at 211 Mid-Tech Drive for the purpose of boat storage and minor boat repair. And what they seek to do is expand their storage of toxic and hazardous materials. They have a Board of Appeals hearing in the near future. So the purpose of this meeting for the Board of Health is to formulate their position, whether you vote to recommend this proposal to the Board of Appeals or whether you vote not to recommend it.
Okay, great, that's clear. Okay, and I'll have you come up right after, okay? The
Sure.
presentation, yeah. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, thanks. Introduce yourselves and you're on.
Sure. My name is Paul Tardif. I'm an attorney in Yarmouthport. And seated with me is Brian Mullins, who's the general manager over at the Hyannis Yacht Club. We also have a couple of guys in the front row here, the Commodore Bill Abbott and the Vice Commodore Randy Wallen. And as Carl just indicated, we're looking for your approval so we can move on to the next level at the Zoning Board of Appeals in October. I think we're on for the 10th if everything goes well. Okay. And we are in possession of Carl's memorandum of September 9. I know it's a draft, but we have that, and that was sent to us last week. And we are proposing a use which requires a special permit in the Aquifer Protection District, because we're going to maintain more than household quantities once we get approvals. And I think that we can demonstrate that we're willing to take all the necessary steps in order to ensure that the APD is going to be protected and will not be harmed in any way while we're there occupying the property. The Hyannis Yacht Club, just for a little background, is a private club in Hyannis Harbor at 490 Ocean Street in Hyannis, founded in 1939. There are 2 sections of this club. One is it has 600 yacht club members, or just actual sailors, and then there's the rest of us, about 5,000 members at the Captain's Table Association, which basically is the restaurant operation of the operation, and it's a fine dining restaurant at the same location. The yacht club is actively involved in sailing for hobby, for competitions. They host competitions. They have their own teams that go out and sail around New England for different competitions. And the club really prides itself on encouraging yachting for kids and for adults, promoting education, has a clubhouse, has anchorage, has dock space. During the summer season, all the activity takes place right down there in Hyannis. There's really nothing that's really going to be happening in Yarmouth, very little, if anything. The club stores its boats in off-site locations, currently in Hyannis and other locations, and does minor repairs at a different leased location in Hyannis currently. Actually, I think their lease is pretty much up, so that's why this is. The timing on this is very important to get them into this location as soon as we can. The club currently owns its own boats. It has a 31-foot Down East committee boat, and if you don't know what a committee boat is, the boat that goes out during sailing competitions and has the officials that monitor the sailing activities, the finishes, is there for emergencies if need be, but they basically take the people in charge out to watch. We have 2 Crosby-style launches also to get people back and forth to boats that are moored. We have 12 small power boats. They're run between 12 feet and 21 feet, and they are stored on trailers. We have 6 22-foot sailboats on trailers and 18 14-foot sailboats on trailers. These are owned by the club. These are not member vessels at all. We don't take care of member vessels at this location. This is just going to be for those boats that we mentioned there. As I indicated, the sailboats are on trailers. Those, no engines, no materials. They're just going to be stored on the trailers. The staff is going to be between 2 and 3 people working at the site during the winter months to get the boats back into tip-top condition. Some of the materials that they use in the minor repairs are acetone, gel coat, and fiberglass resin. Those come in 5-gallon buckets. Any paints or varnishes that are used are in 1-gallon or smaller buckets. Nothing in 55 gallons or anything like that. Any mechanical work that has always been done at an off-site location in Hyannis, and that will continue to be off-site over at Char Custom Boat in Yarmouthport. They're right behind the IFAW building. And they've been before this board, and they have a wash basin, and they have a tight tank. They're set up for that. So they will be handling that piece for them. That will not be done on site either. So any type of machinery or mechanical work that has to get done on engines will be done there. In the late fall, basically what happens is the boats are pulled out, and it's coming up pretty quickly. They're trailered. They brought to the appropriate sites, either for mechanical repairs, power washing of the bottoms of boats, which will not be done at our site either. Again, Char Custom Boats are usually winterize the boat engines, and the exterior tanks, if they have them, are drained and then pulled from the boats themselves. Then, once they're done, then they're brought to the facility for minor fiberglass repair, minor paint touch-ups, varnishing, boat bottoms, shrink wrap, that type of thing. In May, the boats are brought back out to the club, and then they're back in the water for the entire summer till about October. So from May to October, there's not hardly any activity going on up there. There's a little storage for the restaurant, and I'll go through that. The proposal currently is to lease 4 of the bays of this 8-bay building. There's 4 on one side, 4 face the other way. These would be on the north side of that building if you go up Mid-Tech Drive. It also has 24 parking spaces on that side of the building that they'd be allowed to use. Unit E, F, G, and H, and I've submitted a floor plan showing where those are in relation to the front of the building and versus the back. Unit E is mostly for the storage of restaurant things, china, flatware, glassware, tabletops, paper products. There's also some historical records from the club that are stored there in the dry storage. Holiday decorations, those types of things. Unit F would store the 2 launch boats, and those tanks, those are not removable tanks. Those are tanks that are built into the boat. They're 40 gallons each, and those will be filled up to 95% capacity because that is required. And I think we checked that with the building department, and we ran it by Bruce as well. I think that's accurate. Unit H will be for boat repairs and some small, store some small sailboats. And Unit H, the boat repairs and some more storage for boats that are on trailers that would fit into those bays. So you have a detailed floor plan for each of those units and what's going to happen in them. Trailered boats, for the most part, will be stored outside in some of those parking spaces. Again, we're talking about 3 employees at the maximum at the location, and there's not going to be any club members. There's not going to be anyone coming checking on their boats because they're all club-owned boats. We have submitted...
Paul, your floor plan shown on what, a 8.5 by 11 plan, or which plan
Yes.
is the floor plan that you're referring to?
It's part of this package that you
What's the
received.
plan look like? Do you have it right there?
Yep. First is, we have this floor plan that shows where the parking spaces are in relation to each
So
of
it's
the
on the
units.
parking plan? Okay.
Yes. And then after that, there's a couple of site plans, and then we have the 4 units shown. Right. And then we have individual units. We start with E, and what's going to happen, where things are. Right. F, G, and H follow. Okay, and it shows where the bathrooms are, mezzanine, those types of things. We have also submitted a plan that shows the containment system that is going to be installed. There's going to be floor drains installed in all 4 units. They're all going to drain collectively into a tight tank which will be out in the parking lot area. That'll be 1,500 gallons. It will be alarmed, with lights and sound as well. You have a plan, I believe, for that. And I believe that was also, at least the holding tank itself was blown up, so you have all that information that shows where that is. So the materials that we plan to store there, we're going to start with the fuel stored within the boats themselves. Again, they have integral fuel tanks. There are 5 boats that have tanks that you cannot pull out. And by rule, we have to fill those tanks. So that's 275 gallons full for those boats to sit there for the year. The materials used to repair the boats is only about 45 gallons, but we double that up to about 96 gallons, just because if there's a gallon can that's open and being used, we usually have 1 can on the shelf in case we run out. So we double that up. In total, there's going to be about 371 gallons, which we rounded up to the 400 gallons at the maximum. And again, in the off months, those 5 boats are all in the water, and there's 275 gallons gone from the site immediately. And I know that requesting more than is currently needed has been a practice of the board. I know it's something that was recommended to us in the past, and so 400 will be more than enough at this site. We have reviewed Mr. Lawson's memorandum and all the conditions and recommendations. We don't have any objection except for recommendations number 8 and number 9. One is to provide, actually, let me get it out so we can read it. Number 8 is to, a list of the occupants of the other building units must be provided to the health department. We tried our best to provide that. We don't own the building, so we don't know who else is in any of those units, if anyone. I think that all 4 units are probably being used by the company.
Spinal Tech?
Spinal Tech. They make back braces and things like that, and I know they have a facility right next door, their own building. This is overflow for them, but we don't know much more about them than that at this point. And I'd rather not have that, if we're going to be leasing these spaces until we buy it, not have that as a requirement. Same for number 9. All other units in the building must be brought into compliance with town regulations. We really have no jurisdiction over any of those other units in that building, and to make us be responsible for what happens in those units, I don't think is fair, reasonable, or what this board intends. So if we wanted to limit those to, and you could include them once we purchase the building, because that is the plan, that would be fine as well. So you can either remove them now, or we could just temper them by saying that once we own the building, those would kick in. I don't think we have any problem with that, correct?
So you'd buy it, not know who's next door to you.
Well, we're going to buy the whole building,
Okay.
and then leave those tenants in place and make sure that they are in compliance with the same regulations that we're going through right here. So, if the business does comply with the Board of Health regulations and Mr. Lawson's memorandum, I don't believe there's any reason that there'll be any risk to the aquifer in this case. I think we can all agree that the oversight that you provide will create minimum risk to the aquifer, to the town. You also have to take into consideration that whoever the powers that be that laid out our business district did it right on top of the aquifer protection zone. So there's not a lot of business districts in Yarmouth that are exempt from that. With all that said, I think that the plan and everything that has been submitted to you, including a spill plan, really eliminates any of the risk that anything's going to be dangerous for the aquifer. So with that, I will hopefully entertain any questions that you have. Mr. Mullins is here for questions as well, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. For coming in. Carl, you want to talk a little bit?
I think between what I said initially and what Attorney Tardif said, no, I think we've covered the situation. I'm prepared to ask any other specific questions you might have.
Who's the owner of the building?
He's a gentleman from Dennis.
And I know you said that you requested twice for the information about the other tenants. What's going to happen next?
Well, now, the building department regulates occupancy, and they have already reached out to the tenant verbally and in writing, because the first step that has to happen in the regulatory process is the tenants have to secure a use and occupancy permit from the building department. Right now, even if I were to evaluate them, I could not license them until they have their building department obligations complete, and that's a use and occupancy permit. So the building department is pursuing that,
So
but that's not complete at this time.
okay, so they haven't even done that?
The tenant on the other side of the building has not done that.
Right. How long has that tenant been there, do you know?
It seems like a few months, as best I can determine, because there were other tenants previously that are now have vacated.
Right.
What has the owner of the building said regarding
I haven't
this?
had a conversation with the owner of the building.
So it's the building department that's been in contact with the owner of the building and the tenants, or?
I don't have intimate knowledge of what the building department's done. I know they've had contact with the tenant. I don't know what interactions they've had with the building owner. The most recent time I checked with the building department was just last week, and they had nothing further at that time.
Have you been in contact with the owner of the building?
We have been in contact to let them know that there's a concern, and I know he is trying to address it. I have not talked to him, I would say, in the last month.
Excuse me, thank you.
It's strange, so if he's interested in selling the building or whatever,
Right. We're looking to buy the building within a 2-year period. We're not looking to buy it immediately.
all right. Some questions, everyone? There's a lot here.
The requirements for the floor drain and the holding tank, those are not our requirements, but they're state requirements, and you've included them in the recommendations, as you usually do. But I'm just curious, if you didn't include them in our recommendations, who would make sure that that happened?
Well, the floor drains are required by state plumbing code.
Right.
And that's enforced by our local town plumbing inspector. So if we didn't require that, he would anyway. And then, once you get so many feet outside the building, I don't know exactly how many feet, then the system comes under the jurisdiction of Department of Environmental Protection, the State Department. They dictate the requirements of the holding tank.
Okay.
So we have those two separate agencies involved. And while it's not a health requirement, it does provide some additional protection to the aquifer,
Right.
that system.
So these operations have been done at separate facilities up until now, in Hyannis
We
primarily?
had a facility in Hyannis, yes.
And you outgrew it, basically, or you?
We
needed to-
outgrew it because we had the maintenance facility in Hyannis, and then we were storing the boats elsewhere, and now we're looking, and we leased it. Now we're looking to do a lease purchase where we'll eventually own the building and have everything on one location.
There's really no space at the Hyannis Yacht Club itself really to store anything. Right next door is a public beach, and the town really does not allow anything to be stored there year-round. The facility has the clubhouse that's right near the beach. There's nothing, no space in front, and behind it is the parking lot, and that's about it. And then there's condominiums on either side, so it's a space issue down there.
I should have asked, anyone on the board need to recuse themselves? Anybody a member of this club or any conflict of interest at all?
No.
Okay.
Time I get near a boat is to fix an engine.
Okay. Maybe give us a breakdown again of the quantity of fuel and location, okay? Interior, exterior, kind of tanks they're in, just to see what we're dealing with. Obviously, that's probably on the top of the list here of concerns.
Okay, so there's 5 total power boats. 2 of the power boats have integral 40-gallon tanks, and they'll be stored inside the building. The other 3 boats that have integral tanks ranging from 50 to 75 gallons, those 3 will be stored outside the building. And again, with full tanks, or essentially full tanks. And that's per fire department code. That's per fire code. From what I understand, the liquid fuel crowds out fumes, so you lessen fire risk, as I understand it. Now, the remaining materials, of which there's less than 100 gallons, those will be stored inside the building in container sizes of 5 gallons or less. And those are the resins, paints, and solvents that they use for painting and minor fiberglass repair. And when the boats arrive on site, they're going to arrive with the filled tanks. There'll be no fueling on site, and there'll be no fueling treatment on site. So there'll be no transfer of fuel on site. And then the hazardous materials that are used for boat maintenance, those are used completely. So in other words, they don't generate any waste material from that, except possibly a small amount of waste solvent, but that may not even happen either.
And some textiles?
Yes.
You have looked at the spill plan that they submitted? Is it
I
okay?
have, yes. And it's in compliance with our requirements.
You said this is going to be for the next 80 years of your club. Do you expect to add boats over the years?
We do not expect to, no.
No. Okay.
But if we do, we like to have that option.
Right.
So what are the risks here with the fuel sitting in boats outside? If a storm come through, Harwich didn't do very well recently, Osterville with the tornado that came through. So what are the risks of 200 gallons sitting outside in the boats, perched on something? So I wouldn't know. I don't have a boat like that.
Right. Well, I can honestly say, I mean, my opinion is, I think it's safer in a boat than it is a vehicle. You know, whereas if the fuel leaks out, it's going to contain in the hull of the boat. So it's got a second way to be stored.
Okay.
So I think it's a little safer than a vehicle. If a storm comes through, I can't honestly tell you what would happen.
I would have thought it, except for the recent history here. That's all
Yeah.
that brings to mind.
I can appreciate that.
I don't think you could make anything tornado. Come on.
Well, the issue is whether having 200 gallons or not have 200 gallons of a toxic or hazardous material. That's what it's coming down to. No, I agree.
Tornado will reach inside the building and get the rest of it. That's all.
Well, that's why we're here tonight, trying to figure out what to do. Obviously, there are risks and benefits of going forth. That's all. I mean, that's that's our job here, whether we're members of the club or not. But it's a question of what we need to do here tonight.
Right.
What are the benefits to the town versus risks for the town? Benefits would be, is there more income coming to the town? Does it help tourism? Does it help the health of anyone? Are there risks that would harm the environment or harm people? So it's benefits versus risk, and that's sort of our responsibility, regardless of your feeling about the activities involved, you know, which is great. Club sounds great. I had one question about the Kenco inspection that was on the fire sprinkler system. Carl, I don't know if you know, it just wasn't, there's no date on it that I can see here. There's no inspector's name. The owner didn't sign it either. There's no signature done by the customer, which would be the club. That's what I have here. I assume everyone has the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's dated beginning of this month.
Well, the customer is the owner of the building. It's not the club.
It's not, okay.
But
So
we instigated,
you asked for the inspection.
asked for it to be
I think so,
compliant
right.
with the town. So, yes, I know the building is sprinklered, and if
Yeah.
we get the town approval, we are going to look to add some additional sprinklers in there just to add extra security.
Okay. So where am I missing the date?
First page,
I'm there.
about on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
It starts with work order number.
Okay.
Just below that.
okay. Okay, so you think that's the date of the inspection itself, then, the 9/3?
Date completed, I think it was 9/2.
Okay, yeah, okay. Everyone's kind of quiet here tonight.
Carl has done his usual thorough job.
As
Thank you.
usual.
Possibly have Kyle read the other conditions, 1 through 7, that he was recommending?
Sure.
Or a board member, one or the other? Kyle?
Okay, condition 1, the maximum on-site storage of toxic or hazardous materials is not to exceed 400 gallons. That figure was arrived upon after adding the total of the fuel in the integral tanks in the 5 boats, and then padding the figure for the inside materials, for the smaller materials they're going to work with, padding it a little bit to round it off to 400 gallons. That provides them the opportunity to have 2 containers of each, because there's no way we can accurately evaluate how full a container is. Does it have 2.5 gallons in it or 5? So all containers are considered to be full. That's the method we operate by, and fire department does as well. So that's how the 400-gallon total was derived. A detailed condition 2, a detailed spill containment plan must be conspicuously posted at all times. Employees familiar with the plan. That plan has been developed. And again, it was developed in accordance with the template that we in health use along with the fire department. So that's fine. No vehicle or boat washing is allowed, condition 3. No vehicle or boat fueling is allowed, condition 4. Nor is any proposed. So that works for them and for us. Condition 5, I spelled out, no mechanical repair of boats or vehicles is allowed. They don't need to do it. They haven't proposed to. But I specified mechanical because they do plan to do fiberglass work and painting and cosmetic work. So we're clear on that. The flood drains, as I mentioned, that's under the jurisdiction of the town plumbing and gas inspector, who enforces state plumbing code. So he will approve those plans and that installation. The holding tank that the flood drains connect to, that's under Mass Environmental Code, the DEP. So it's the designing engineer, the licensed professional engineer will certify that. And then the other 2 that Attorney Tardif was not in favor of, a list of the building occupancy and all other units being brought into compliance. Those were the last 2 conditions we listed.
Frankly, I mean, I agree. I don't think that that should be the responsibility of the folks that are requesting the,
I agree with that. My only concern is the safety of what's on the other side of the wall.
Right. I think it needs to be here, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's their responsibility.
Oh, absolutely, I agree 100%.
But yes, I'd like to know who else is there and what they're doing, and that they are being overseen by somebody in the
It's
town.
sort of like a black box, right?
Yeah.
We don't know if they're flame being used there for something. Who knows? Are they? Anyway, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I would just say that, businesses within our aquifer protection district that we're trying to make sure that they're safe and not having toxic chemicals next to our well fields, we like to know what's in the building. We try to get a hold of an owner to work with the owner to find out what the businesses are so we can see if they have toxic materials and we can work with them. Unfortunately, this owner has not come forward to work with us to see what's in there. However, the owner is going forward to rent the property. And ask the board for concessions and to go in and a recommendation to the Board of Appeals. I guess talking in the office, in my opinion, is we should know what's in the building. They should come to us. They're asking for conditions from us, and prior to issuing the conditions, we should know what's going on in the building. We are just way too busy to keep chasing people all over town to see what's in businesses. And when they come to us and ask, can we do something else, we need to say what's going on in your property. It's right close to our well fields, as close as you can get, and I think we have a concern of what's going in there. And that's why we added both 8 and 9 to this conditions.
Carl said the building department,
They're also going for it, but we don't know if they're going to follow through. We don't know where they are in their procedures. We're the ones that issue the request right now for going into the building. They're before us. They're not before the building department now. Building's working on it, but they're asking us for assistance.
then I would think that if we made a recommendation in favor of this, that we would put a condition on it, that we knew what was going on in the.
That's condition 8 and 9. That's
Right.
right.
But I'm just saying I don't think it's their
Right.
responsibility to
Oh.
fill that. I think it's the towns to know what's in there and the building owner to respond to the town.
Building
The other
owner is not
tenants-
responding, yeah.
And the other tenants to come forth and say, we need a business license or whatever it is, they need to be in that space and conducting some sort of business.
I mean, that owner is benefiting, you're paying your rent, I assume, so, and the owner is going to perhaps sell the building, that's something else he's benefiting, and I assume whoever's on the other side of the walls there is paying rent. I mean, the concern we have is we don't have a welder on the other side or whatever.
Was it the building owner or the tenant that was unresponsive?
Is that question to me, Eric?
Anyone
Okay.
who can answer it.
I can say that the building owner has, the building tenant, I'm sorry, has not responded to the building department, who has asked both verbally and in writing that these units apply for occupancy.
So wouldn't the building owner have the ability to get in touch with his or her tenant? I mean, you would hope.
Getting a check from them, they
Yes,
must have
right.
contact information.
It seems pretty straightforward. You have a business owner that's local, lives in the next town. He should know what's in his 4 other units being asked, and I guess that's my concern, if he doesn't want to come forward and tell us that there could be a concern of toxic or hazardous material in the buildings. Spinal Technology, if they're in there, fine. We do work with Spinal Technology. That's a great company to work with, but we're not sure who's in the building.
You know, I'm surprised you're moving along with it with not knowing a little bit more, that's all. I mean, just, I'm not asking you a question, it's an impression I have.
We have no way of knowing what's happening in other bays.
Of course
I
not, no,
just-
it's a
I
major
just-
investment on your part. You're talking about a lot of money for your club, that's all.
I don't know what else to tell you. I just, it's sort of like in an apartment building. If I'm renting an apartment, I don't know who lives, above me.
Right.
Hopefully, if it's a nice
They don't make noise.
place,
all
yeah,
night.
that's right, yeah, then you'll get to know them, but, and we're not holding information and withholding, that's not the point at all. Of
course not.
We just don't have the ability, I mean, like you said, the tenant must pay rent. I hope so, otherwise it's bad business. So there must be records. I mean, and there's also a way of enforcing this request. It goes through the building department. That's their arm. That's what they're built for. So, the building department brings other people to bear for information and compliance all day. They should be able to do this. I don't know what else to tell you. I just don't think I think we really can't be responsible for those two things. If we have the information, we'll share it. But if we're going to certify something and then someone crawls out of one of the bays with with the oil dripping from his shoes, I don't want to be responsible for it.
Well, how about if someone from the building department went there during business hours to see if they could actually speak to the people that are in those units?
I don't know exactly the
you
nature of
can't
their
answer for
visits, but
them.
what I do know is the units have not been continuously occupied.
Okay.
So it's not as though they're, there for a certain set of business hours where someone can go in. It's
Right.
kind of a
Right.
case where you might find someone, you may not.
it was quiet today over there, right? Nobody was walking around.
No signs or anything?
No, nothing outside that's evident of certain reason.
So are we asking them to exert some leverage here? I mean, what has happened?
Not necessarily, we're just saying before our recommendation is before giving approval for them to go in, because Board of Appeals is asking us, we need to know what's in the building. I mean, we're being asked the question, and before we can
Right.
respond, they need to perform. If they don't want to, obviously go forward, the owner could have been here tonight. Or he could have called us and we could have resolved this earlier.
Yeah, we don't control the owner, and to hold this up for that information, that's not fair at all. That's not fair.
My feeling is, no, that you are not responsible for getting that information. You don't own the building, right? You're renting. That's all you are, right there. But obviously, the predicament we are in a recommendation, has a lot to do with that issue of what's next door.
Well, I mean,
That's the issue that we're
we'll reach out to the owner and ask him to get in contact with someone. That's probably the best we can do.
right. So the issue here, I think for the board, correct me if I'm wrong, is what does the board think they want to do about the whole project in general, in sense of having the yacht club renting and, having storage there? And then there's the other issue of what to do about the other tenant right now.
I got no problem with what he's trying to do at all, none whatsoever, but I would like to, I am interested in the owner's interest in this, because I would like to know what's going on, if they're trying to do something right in one plot, and somebody right next door is not paying attention and goes to screw it up. I don't want them to end up, liable for some bullshit, this is, I got no problem with this at all. This is fine by me, But, I would like the owner to get a little bit involved in this. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Well, I mean, you can certainly make a motion if you want to move forward towards a vote and discussion, and limit it to something, and you have to deal with the fact about the other tenant. We can do that. That's one way to go. We could table the whole thing, or we could pass the whole thing. So that's what's on the right now. You agree?
All right. I'll make a motion to accept the plan as it is here in front of me on 211 Mid-Tech Drive, units E, F, G, and H in West Yarmouth. I guess the only pending part of that is discussion with the owner.
What do you, so one thing you could add to the motion, I mean, we do this pretty informally here, would be to include at least the first 7 recommendations that Carl made
Okay.
to your motion. You can just say motion 1 through 7.
Okay. The motions that Paul made, 1
page
through
6.
7 to be accepted.
Okay.
Is that proper?
We're getting there, yeah, and that's sort of how to make a motion. It is difficult.
In 8 and 9 when they purchased the building? We
No,
want to know beforehand.
We're not discussing it.
Okay.
Are we discussing or not? I mean, we've got a motion.
We're trying to
half
finish the
on
motion,
floor.
we're
Yeah.
just helping form the motion.
Right.
Does anyone else want to customize it a little bit? I mean, we're all here to help each other, so this is
Okay.
done correctly. No,
Would you like me to add?
you certainly can, it's your motion, I'm just trying to help
Okay. No.
organize it a little bit, that's all I'm doing.
Accept the Board of Health recommendations 1 through 7. Or is there 8 here? To be, but I don't know, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I don't know
You're
jack.
fine,
Doing fine.
absolutely.
Just add the part about that's in
But,
question.
What would be a good way of wording it? I mean, this is,
I would say 1 through 9, because number 9 is bring the compliance from the rest of the building.
But we need to say they're not responsible for it.
Yeah, you're not
They're not
responsible for the others.
Recommendations we're making to them to take care of. But we want it taken care of before we give our final approval,
Okay,
right?
yeah, so,
okay, we'll try to make this as clear as we can. You're,
Yeah,
wanna say
the
something?
difficulty with that is if we have, if we have an owner who doesn't want to cooperate with the Board of Health or the building department, we're sitting, waiting.
I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm not gonna let this thing go through if we don't know who's next door. I mean, it's just, I'll give you my opinion right now, but we're in the middle of motion. I don't know how everyone else feels. Your presentation's great, everything's here, but we have a major problem with it. So, with your motion, is it clear enough? Christine, are you able to summarize it? It's not an easy one to make. Could you?
What I understand,
Yes.
what they've proposed is accepted by the board contingent on 1 through 7 of Carl's memorandum, but it is contingent on understanding and knowledge of who else
is in the building.
occupies the building,
Correct.
and which we hope the building department will be able to do that, and that onus is not on them.
Is there a
that
second?
correct?
Is that a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion about it? Okay, so let's vote.
Just a question.
Yeah.
So are we saying that if they purchase the building, once they own it, the other units are to be in compliant?
They already will be.
We're getting different, why don't you state it again? Why don't you ask?
My question is, they had proposed that once they owned the building,
Right.
they could bring the other units into compliance.
Whoever that is at that time, may not even be the people that are in there now. They're just saying as building owners, they would be responsible for being certain that their tenants were in compliance with the regulations, town regulations,
Okay.
and et cetera. But we're asking to know right now who's in those
Okay.
units and what kind of
Correct.
business they're doing.
And that's information that's gonna have to come from the health department, wherever you find it. It's my understanding.
From the building department.
Whoever's gonna find it, I mean, I don't know, but we need it, and for this to pass through. People wanna move forward on a vote? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? No, so that passes. Now, the issue is, let's have a little bit more discussion of what to do here. Let's cut to the chase here of that information. I mean, I can't tell you when that's going to surface. I hope you understand the predicament we're in. It's the safety of the environment here. We're talking about you having 400 gallons of toxic materials there, and we don't know what's on the other side of the walls, on the other bays. That's what I think we're struggling with, and understandably so.
It's the same as someone on the property next door that you don't know about, and somehow we're stuck. This vote, I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, do I go to zoning board of appeals now, or not?
What would be the best way for you, in your best interest, of the business here, of how to get that information? If the town isn't doing a good job, I mean, that's we have a problem here. You have a problem there. As for businesses next door, I think we're on top of what's next door. The buildings get inspected, the businesses get inspected. I don't know if there are any other problems on that street.
Well, why are we left to hang here while information that we don't have in our power to provide
For sure.
is not provided?
If you're going to rent this place and eventually buy it, am I correct in that?
Correct.
Yep,
You're going, where are you sending the check every month?
to our
To the
landlord.
landlord. My only thing is, and forgive me, is we're going to make this building 100% compliant by putting a tight tank, holding tank, and all that in place. So isn't it better that we get in there now and make it compliant versus sitting there waiting and the building's not in compliant for anybody else to go in there? Because in the past, I don't know who the tenants were in the past, but at least this way going forward, you know that there's a tenant there doing the proper things for the town, protecting the water district and having the tanks and everything there. What we got to do on the other side, yes, we do have to find out what's there, and we're certainly happy to assist with that. But we just don't want to be held up because this is getting into our time of year where we're kind of under the crunch. So we're asking for a little bit of leniency with this, and we'll be happy to cooperate and help the town get the information that you need. But I do want to proceed forward and make sure that we're doing our due diligence and to get ready.
Yeah, you are. I don't think we're faulting you in this at all. It's a problem the town has of getting the information. I mean, I don't know what kind of lease your neighbor there has, of whether, are they going to be thrown out? Can they be thrown out if you become the owner? I mean, there are a lot of unknowns here. So basically, that's what our concern is, of whether there's a welder next door to your 400 gallons of toxic material. Right now, you're kind of stuck.
But
The town needs to get that information. That's not your responsibility. You certainly want it. If you can help, whoever that owner is, you put some pressure on. If you had a problem with your building today, you'd have to call the landlord, right?
but what if that landlord doesn't provide that information to you?
You could take some legal action, I guess, if it's a concern on your part, if you feel you're in
Well,
danger.
it's the town's obligation to get the information. They can take the legal action. That's what the enforcement office is for.
Okay.
Why are we being held up with this vote? It's not our obligation.
It's our concern as a board. We're concerned about the environment people living in Yarmouth.
We are too. That's why we filed all this. We are complying with that to protect it.
100%. Your presentation's great.
So you're putting an obligation on us that we can't fulfill.
No, it's not an obligation on you, really. Ultimately, this board wants to hear from the town information that would allow us to pass this plan.
So if it's not our obligation, why can't we proceed?
Because I can tell you, I'll speak for myself, I don't want 400 gallons of toxic material sitting over my drinking water if I don't know what's next door to you.
But we've already told you we're going to protect that. That's not the 400 gallons you're worried about. If there's any gallons you're worried about, it's next door. It's not ours, right?
No, it is. If we don't know what's going on there next door. If we're sitting with 400 gallons and they have flames in there, whatever they're welding with, or making fireworks, who knows what's going next door? That's what our concern is.
So how does the town not know what's happening in these buildings?
I think
You're on target.
since there's no license, you're saying the building department doesn't even have the required paperwork from these people in that unit to conduct a business? Is that what you're saying?
From my understanding, the first step for a new unit occupant
Right.
is to apply for a use and occupancy from the building department. And that has not happened in regard to that tenant. And the building department has pursued that verbally
Okay.
and through a written request.
Then I think.
And that has not been
I
fulfilled
think
yet.
that we
That's
approve
my
their
understanding of the
request,
situation.
And then we say no to the other people if they come back and they're welding or they're doing something that could jeopardize the hazardous materials that these folks are using. And they're here, they've done everything they're supposed to do, they've responded to us. Now it's up to these other tenants, and they have not come forth. So when they do come forth, if it's something that they're doing that's going to be dangerous, then we just say, sorry, you can't do it. We've now got a business that's there, that's met all of the requirements, and we can't have you next door doing whatever you're doing with welding or open flames or whatever we think might be hazardous in terms of what's on the other side.
I mean, they're under a lot of pressure, you know, it's season, you need to get to work there. These boats are coming,
Right.
you gotta get somewhere. But it's an open question, when are we gonna get the information about those tenants? I mean,
That's
it
up to
should
the
come from the
building
owner.
department, though.
They should be dealing with the owner.
The building department
cares about
should
the
be
tenant right
getting
now?
this.
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
You
I
wanna make
think-
another proposal here to make a motion, you certainly can. I'm not sure,
All right.
When will we learn what's next door? We have no idea.
Then, Bruce, can you have the building inspector give us that information? The building department head or whoever it is that's in charge of this?
We can request it. We've already requested it, and they're doing their own time frame to obtain it.
And they know that they're possibly holding up this project? Do they
Oh, I
understand that?
don't know if they understand that part of it.
Maybe you could let them know that this is, it's really not a routine kind of follow-up in terms of somebody that might be occupying a unit and doing business but hasn't submitted the required paperwork.
I believe we brought that question up at site plan review, didn't we, Carl?
Yes.
And
So-
what was the response?
We brought it to everybody's attention, and
But I mean, what did they say?
there was no response from them.
Has anyone picked up the phone? Have you called your landlord? What did the landlord say? I mean, you've seen what Carl wrote, so you know about number 8 and 9, obviously.
Right.
What have you done proactively? You
What
didn't
has the
call your-
town done proactively? I mean, this is a town obligation. I think we're all in agreement on that.
100%.
And I hate to say it, but this is the town. This is the town building. This is this is not our obligation. I fail to see how this is fair, to hold the tenant of 4 units who doesn't own the building responsible for disclosing who other tenants are than we don't even know. And we've already told you it was Spinal Tech.
Final Tech.
That
That's
we know
our
of.
understanding.
I don't know if there's anyone else. I
I'm not
don't.
criticizing anything you've done in your presentation, but you need to see it from our point of view.
You have. I mean-
You don't have to. All I can tell you, the fault maybe is with the town. It's not with the 5 volunteer board members.
Well,
here,
you are the
obviously.
town.
What's that?
You are the town, though. See, this is the problem, is that you said we haven't been proactive in getting information that we don't have.
I'm asking you who made the attempt to. Obviously, you feel strongly about 8 and 9, which I understand totally, and it's not your responsibility. But the idea of calling your landlord and finding out what's going on next door, we have a problem because our inspector wrote a thing up here that may hold up your business deal. And you're moving you along to October. You got to deal with the boats. I appreciate that.
I mean, if you want to throw 8 and 9 in, they're unenforceable against us anyway. I fail to see how we could ever be held accountable for them.
You're not.
Well, then they shouldn't be there. And they shouldn't be holding us up today. With all due respect.
We're not holding you up. It's your people you're trying to rent from that are holding you up.
We can continue working with the building department. We can send our own separate letter to the landlord, the owner of the building, and saying that we need to get in to see what businesses are being in there, to see if they're in compliance. And send a certified letter to him and see if he responds, and when he gets that information, we can bring everything back to the board. I mean, unfortunately, this all takes time. I mean, that's why we tried to call them and just say, could we, who is it? Give us a list of who's there, and we'll just go visit the site, as was done today. But one more thing we can add to the workload that we have right now, then. I mean, we brought it up at site plan review. What was the date of that when we first brought it up, Carl? Site plan review?
I believe it was about August 20th. It was.
I mean, we have, like I said earlier, we have an owner of the building that is local, that just has not supplied the information, but we will try again.
He
And
lives
send
over in
that.
Dennis, doesn't he?
Yes.
I find
And,
this
you know,
rather embarrassing, frankly.
I mean, we can send the forward comments to Board of Appeals, let them know that what the concern is, and prior to them issuing. But, we're trying to get to the bottom of it, but uncooperative.
Yeah, I'm sure 2 of us would be able to get over there with you if we can and find a time to do that.
Oh, absolutely. We could go through.
I mean,
We don't know if they're vacant or not.
right.
Do we need permission to go into that building
Yes,
from the owner?
yes.
Okay, just checking.
Don't go, Charlie.
Back to the old stuff I used to do up north.
So what do you need for us to proceed?
Well, the motion was made and passed that we approved the plan that you submitted with the, including the recommendations from Carl, 1 through 7, and that it was contingent on our knowing what was in the building next door to you, and that it wasn't going to be something that would pose a risk. So I think that that's what we.
That goes to the Board of Appeals.
That goes to the Board of Appeals, so that's what you've got. That's what you take to the Board of Appeals. In the meantime, I'm hoping that something will happen and that we'll find out who is next door, so that maybe even by October, 10th, or whenever you said you were going, we can, you can add that. You can say, by the way, we now know who's next to us. So that contingency has been met.
We're giving essentially a recommendation, right? to
Right,
the
it's not.
Appeals,
yeah,
that's
this
that's
is
what
just-
we're doing here tonight.
Right, they make the decision, but we're making our recommendation because they've asked for it, so.
And they may take it very differently than what we did, right? You've been,
Yeah.
you've been through that.
Yeah.
In a positive or negative way for you, that we have no idea. Hopefully it's positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting the information, let's hope the town comes through. You guys deserve it.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
We'll get there.
All right, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. Make them a little bigger so we can see them. Minor request.
Okay, everyone with me? Yeah, say aye, yes, okay. All right, deep breath, let's move ahead. Okay, agenda, here we got. Okay, number 3, this is hazardous material storage. It sounds familiar, but this is located at 10 Old Town House Road. It's at the Comcast facility. It has to do with increased diesel storage. And the second item listed there, storage of hazardous materials within the Aquifer Protection District.
For our easel.
What's that?
He's looking for the easel. That's all.
It's
Okay.
nothing you folks probably don't have. If everybody has a half set of plans, you probably don't need it. But if you would like it, I can definitely put it up on an easel.
We have a lot of plans here. I don't know. Do we need it or we don't need it?
It's nothing new.
We can start without it, see what it is. I
Okay.
just didn't know if it helped the people at home.
Okay, just, once again, Carl, just give us a 30-second introduction, and you don't have to stand up during this whole thing, all right? And then we'll have you
Okay.
come back afterward.
Thank
I
you.
didn't want to interrupt them before, but yeah, so please sit down after you do this, and then we'll have you come back up and explain things that we don't understand, as usual, okay?
Thank you. We have a proposal before us from Comcast to increase the amount of their diesel storage at their local facility at 10 Old Town House Road. They've been there for several decades. They've stored diesel previously, but in a lower quantity. And now they seek to upgrade their generators. The 2 existing generators will be replaced by 2 larger capacity generators for the purposes of, first of all, being able to power the whole building. Right now, if electric service to the building is out, they can't illuminate the whole building. And especially during storm response, they need to be able to have all areas of the building, planning, warehouse, all functional. And it'll also allow backup for the cable service they provide. So they propose to install 2 new generators with a larger capacity each than the 2 generators they have now. Each of the 2 newly installed generators have integral tanks, each of 1,500 gallons, both double-walled, for a total of about 3,000 gallons. And then they also propose to have a concrete berm around that area, which they have now, but they'll enlarge it. And that concrete berm area is designed to hold 1,500 gallons, or the capacity of about one of the tanks. So that's the proposal before us. A few other details is the generators are tested weekly by Comcast personnel. They're run briefly. MyCom, their generator contractor, tests them quarterly and then does a larger yearly test, along with some fuel treatment once a year.
So our responsibility tonight is what?
Is to hear this proposal
Right.
and then make a recommendation to the Board of Appeals that you're in favor of it or that you're not in favor of it.
Okay, clear, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so, gentlemen, introduce yourselves.
Yeah, hi, my name's Paul DeLucia with MyCom. I'm the contractor.
Okay.
Doing the design for Comcast.
Okay.
And we'll be designing installing the 2 generators and doing the upgrade to the electrical room. Scott and Dave are my designers,
Okay,
and they can talk about the outside work and inside work.
great. Okay.
I'm Ed Woods of Comcast. I oversee all...
Just have to talk into the mic if you have something to say. This is televised, and we want to hear what you're saying, and the people at home do also. Whatever you have to say is...
You could bring another
Just
chair.
introducing myself, I am Ed Woods of Comcast. I oversee all of the capital projects and the buildings here on the Cape.
Okay.
And Paul is the vendor doing the work.
Sure, great. And if you wanted to have a seat and come up to the table, you're welcome to, sir.
No, I'm good right here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Scott Adams. I'm with Advanced Engineering Group. I'm the project manager engineer working on the project on behalf of Comcast.
Okay.
Carl did a great job giving a quick synopsis of what we're proposing here. Just to give you a brief overview, obviously it's at 10 Old Townhouse Road. We're on the northerly side of the road on a parcel that's approximately 1.76 acres. It's the existing operations center. In the rear right-hand side of the building, there's an existing generator enclosure, existing 8-foot stockade fenced enclosure that is on a concrete pad with a concrete berm.
Excuse me one second. We're talking about, right now about the
existing.
north side of the property?
The northeasterly side of the building.
Right, okay.
Yep, the rear northeasterly side of the building. So there's currently a fenced-in enclosure for the generators. There's currently a 125 kW generator that's there now, and there's room for a roll-up generator should they need. What is currently being proposed is the replacement of that area, so there'll be a new fenced-in area, a new pad, new concrete berm, and 2 new generators for N+1 capability. So there's redundant capability. If one generator were to fail, they have an immediate backup, and the facility stays, this is now considered an emergency facility. It supplies E911 service, so you have police and fire apparatus as well as other critical infrastructure down the Cape, provides backhaul networks to telecommunications facilities. Those facilities may have their own battery backup, telecommunications towers, their own generators, but if they don't have backhaul, if they don't have fiber, those phone calls are not going to go through. So this is a critical infrastructure in that regard as well. So what's currently being proposed is 2 250 kW generators, each one containing a fuel storage tank of 1,470 gallons each. We have designed double wall tanks. Those tanks, as was stated, are remotely alarmed. And then in addition to that, as a third level of containment, there's a concrete berm that is being placed around this facility that will contain over 1,900 gallons should there be a catastrophic event, borderline like a terrorist attack type of thing, that's going to actually puncture a double wall tank. For the immediate failure of a double wall tank, even with the alarm system, it would still contain up to 1,900 gallons of fuel within that berm.
Okay.
Why isn't there enough for both generators?
Because typically you wouldn't see 2 tanks fail. It's not one tank, a generator that's being serviced from one tank where a failure would require 3,000 gallons or thereabouts of storage. The probability of that happening is basically 0 because they're double line tanks. If the inner tank failed, the outer one would contain it. We would get the alarm. They would go out and replace that tank. In the event that both failed and the alarm didn't work, it's containing 1,900 gallons. It reaches a point of diminished returns. It just doesn't make sense. If it was one tank of 3,000 gallons, I would absolutely agree with you. But the fact that it's being designed as 2 separate tanks with both double lines and separate alarm systems that are monitored on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and they're tested as well. It's not like a typical residential model where they're not really tested and you hope your generator starts when you need it. This is getting tested weekly and monthly and inspected, and they also do the fuel yearly. So it's a critical infrastructure project that is taken very seriously.
But you mentioned terrorist attack, and in that case, both are gone.
I'm saying, when I mentioned terrorists, I mentioned more like sabotage or something like that. Usually, you're not going to see two different tanks
Right.
be impacted or ruptured at one time.
Right. Not to mention diesel, you can't explode diesel, propane, natural gas explodes.
Yes.
Okay. What's the quantity now, gallon-wise, of fuel today? What's sitting there now?
A couple hundred gallons. 200?
Okay. So
This will complete-
That's a
this-
large increase, then. We're going
Right.
from
Well,
200.
from 98 till
1,000
to
gallons.
2019, this will complete all of the sites down the Cape with having dual generators. This is pretty much the last one getting done. So it just took, the time and money to do it.
And the increase, as was discussed, the existing generator now is only handling a small portion of the building. These new
Correct.
generators are handling the entire building,
Yeah.
so that all of their infrastructure will be capable of providing support in a serious event. In addition to that, their runtime is increasing, so that this is going to extend them out to 2 full days of operational, so that they can have the opportunity, if it's an extended outage, to actually get additional fuel brought in to be able to service those generators. So 200 gallons would only run these generators for well less than a day.
Yeah.
So
With
that
the
wouldn't be
load.
enough time for the storm to pass and actually get additional fuel to the site.
Now, you mentioned 911.
Correct.
Okay, obviously, Board of Health, we have a responsibility for the health of people living in Yarmouth. Okay, so that kind of rings a bell for, I'm sure, everyone on the board. So I think it would be helpful to take us through what Comcast has to do with 911 in some more details. Obviously, this is not our specialty, communications. So that would be very helpful to know. I mean, what most of us up here think about, or I do about Comcast, we talk about Netflix. I'm not really talking about emergency services here.
Yeah, they provide internet
Yeah.
and fiber optic services to
Okay.
not only municipal services, fire, police, but they also provide it to the telecommunications provider, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint. So if you pick up your phone and you want to call 911 in an event,
Yes.
you may get through to the cell tower, but if that cell tower does not have what we call backhaul, which is fiber optic connection back to Comcast, your phone call is not going to go through. So it's critical. Your chain is only as strong as your weakest link, so to speak.
Sure.
And that's what we're trying to do, is reinforce that weak link, which is the generator at the power to their facility. And we're trying to do redundant generator power and make sure that there's adequate time of runtime so that they have the opportunity to get additional fuel to the site.
Okay, so a major storm, okay, so you're talking about 48 hours, you say, okay. Is that enough time? I mean, where's the fuel coming from? What condition are the bridges in? Are the roads open?
Great questions.
Okay, so we're in an island.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And there is a disaster plan in place by Comcast. They have independent contractors that are discussed, and then they have meetings ahead of time that basically say this storm is rolling in, and I'm sure Ed can elaborate on that further. But they get their pawns in place, so to speak. They get their fueling trucks in place ahead of time. They top off all of their diesel generators ahead of time prior to the storm event. They know ahead of time if it's a significant event. They have a full team of people that's their job, is to make sure that these generators and these facilities stay operational and have the fuel that they're going to need to supply those generators for the entire storm event.
So they're sitting with their own storage tanks, you're saying?
They have contractors that have their own storage trucks that are topped off, that are readily enabled to go and service these units prior to the event and is immediately capable afterwards.
Assuming the roads are in a condition to be used by trucks?
Correct.
And they're not underwater or whatever happens? Okay. Carl, did you want to add anything right now or not? I mean, I'm not sure. Is there anything else that you wanted to?
Just in regards to fueling, I could say they have a few different vendors on retainer. They
Okay.
mentioned to me, maybe they want to elaborate on that further.
Okay.
So they're not dependent on one single fuel vendor to service them.
Okay, thank you.
And different quantities. For example, there'll be a different fuel vendor at startup, someone who can provide a very large quantity to fill 2 tanks completely at one time. Beyond that, the fuel deliveries will come in much smaller quantities because these generators are typically not routinely used unless they have a storm. So if they're exercised weekly by Comcast staff and quarterly by the MyCom, the generator contractor staff, they don't use very much fuel. So those deliveries will only be, maybe 100 gallons or less routinely. And then, of course, with a storm and heavy generator use, they'll get larger fuel drops. So routinely, the fuel deliveries will be pretty small volume.
And just during the emergencies, all the tanks on the Cape are going to have to get filled for any urgent
Not,
businesses.
yes, in a
Right,
way, but
okay.
not fully, we're
I don't
talking-
understand what you're saying.
Well, I'm just saying, you're saying filled, all the tanks, just, maybe 10 gallons here, 20 gallons here. We're not talking a big volume of diesel.
And so we have remote fuel monitoring that we can look at these things remotely, and we have them alarmed. So when they hit 67%, we call that a low fuel level.
Sure.
So that we can have time to respond to get fuel trucks. And to Paul's point, most times before storms, like prior to a storm, and to what Mr. Lawson had mentioned also, we'll just top them off because we don't want to see the alarms. So, we're still talking 5/8 of a tank of fuel at 67%. But we like to see them up above, 70%, and then we don't fill them up to any more than 80% ever to allow for fuel expansion.
So it sounds like you're very dependent upon truck deliveries then, in emergencies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we have them prepped ahead of time. We have contracts with, like Kyle mentioned, 2 different vendors for deliveries.
Carl, what do other large businesses do, to run their generators? What other options are there besides 3,000
There
gallons?
is natural gas. Now, I can't speak to availability. I know for a time National Grid had a moratorium on new services, but I know we do have other diesel generators in town, and we do have generators in town that are on natural gas also. So we've seen a mix of those 2 fuels.
You were going to say something, Drew?
Well, we're on natural gas here at Town Hall. But my other question is, you were saying on the 911, a person makes a call to the cell tower, then the cell tower relays that to you, right? Because the cell towers have backup power?
Correct.
Right, so then the call's relayed to you, a Comcast. Then what's the step, once you get a call in?
Goes to the next party, like we're like the middleman, if you will. When the person makes the call, it hits the cell tower, and their feed comes in through our building.
Right.
And then we and Sharon pump it out to whomever that,
And what are you pumping out? What is the information that they're providing you?
through fiber,
But
their
what's
phone
the
call.
question, though? They don't have power,
No, it's the actual phone call.
The phone call itself.
the line's down?
No, if you pick up your cell phone and you make a call, the cell phone is transmitted to the wireless tower
Right.
through the air. Once it hits the wireless tower, they have contracts with the internet service providers, and it goes into the landline to your contact across the country.
Right.
Without the landline, i.e. the backhaul that we're referring to, which in this case is Comcast, your call will not go through. The cell towers don't leap together from cell tower to cell tower. That's not how they work. It's just the quickest path to the landline.
And you need power for what purpose?
Keep our electronic equipment up that processes all of that.
Data.
The data. It's basically high-speed internet. Is pretty much in a nutshell like fiber backhaul, cell backhaul. It's all your phone. Yep.
Make reference to a landline. I didn't understand what you meant by that.
Landline is things that is typically run on utility poles or underground. The landline, the hard lines
Right.
that would be run through the street versus the telecommunications carriers, Verizon, which is run through the air.
Right. No, that I get. So you're only talking about people who have landlines, essentially, as opposed to anyone using their cell phone.
No, what I'm referring to is if you have a cell tower over here and you pick
Right.
up your phone call, your phone reaches a cell tower,
right.
and then they're connected to the landline. They have utility
That's how
poles.
they're getting to you.
That's how the cell provider is getting their internet, their telephone calls, is through the landline. Without Comcast, they can't do anything.
Right.
All they can do is send and receive data through the air. But in order to get it into the landline system, they need the backhaul.
Okay.
In other words, during the storm, if you call 911 and his generators aren't running, you might as well talk to a doorknob.
Correct.
And it happens quite frequently. My firm,
Yes.
we work
I've seen
all
that
over,
happen before.
we work all over New England.
Call is absolutely wasted if their generators aren't running.
So my firm also, we work with, all the telecommunication provider all over New England directly. We have contracts with
The tower
Verizon,
in my
Tele,
field runs every Sunday for 2 hours.
and we get reports
Backup
regularly. If backhaul goes down, we need to find them another way to get their backhaul back up and running, whether it be micro shots, whether we bringing in new lines, we do emergency management designs to get those sites back up and running. So we're intimately familiar with, how they operate.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that the 911 was such an issue. I had never really heard where people saying 911 isn't working.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Never heard
Sure.
people complain of it, or you read in the paper that
I have
911
another
is out.
example that actually hasn't been discussed is most like iPhones, for instance, or phones by this standard can actually make calls over Wi-Fi. So in a home that doesn't have great cellular coverage, they actually will be making their phone calls through their internet, high-speed internet.
Right.
So if that high-speed internet's down, again, their cell phone will not work if they're in a poor coverage area. So Comcast and other providers are providing that Wi-Fi calling capability as part of their service. And I know for myself and other family members, we don't even have landlines anymore in your house. You're using
Yeah,
cell phones.
right.
So we are completely, a slave to that technology now.
Can you explain the difference, of the concern of using natural gas? I mean, we have a facility right in town,
Yeah,
within a half mile.
The company's philosophy is not to be reliant on another utility. We've had multiple examples, one of them being Hurricane Sandy down in Union, New Jersey. During the hurricane, it destroyed all the roads and infrastructure. They actually shut the gas off to multiple towns, and we had sites that were on natural gas that actually went down because of it. That was one. We had Lawrence, Massachusetts. We just heard in the news, I'm sure that made the news around you folks. We had a site up there that we ran on generator for 2 days because they had to shut the power down, the electrical power to the whole city and surrounding towns, because that was human error. But that was Columbia Gas. They had to shut down their whole gas system for the whole town of Lawrence and Andover, which was a major catastrophe. We ran on generators there for 2 days, before they even let us go back in and look at things. And then I believe right down here, wasn't it, didn't you folks have a tornado come through here that ripped up some trees and destroyed some natural gas lines in here? So it's just basically being able to control our own destiny, if you will, and not be reliant on another utility in case they should shut down for some unforeseen reason. And it's been hard lessons learned in the past because of it, really, why they would prefer diesel.
In Sandy, people ran out of fuel, okay? It
Oh,
was
yeah.
underwater. People's generators weren't working because they didn't get deliveries.
Yeah, I went
okay?
down there.
I was down there as well. So
Yep.
generators stopped, there was no fuel, the roads weren't functional. So that was
We
part
still,
of that picture.
even though that's true, I mean, we try to maintain services, even though everybody else might be out around us, because of the reliability of 911. We don't want any lawsuits against us or anything else, so we do our hardest to make sure that the services are up, even though most houses are probably without power, but that is the main reason.
I mean, one of the considerations you need to think about then is, you brought up the issue of natural gas, okay, versus liquid fuel. Basically, from the town standpoint of view, you're presenting, I guess, the case for having 3,000 gallons of fuel sitting over our drinking water versus another source of energy to run new generators. So that's a significant consideration here.
But again, I think as the applicant, just to reiterate, we feel we've done our due diligence with providing not only one tank, it's a double wall tank with a remote alarm, maintaining that alarm, remotely monitoring the alarm, and then adding another third layer that is typically above and beyond code requirements to contain it in the event of a catastrophic event as well. So we think, while we are asking for that, I think as a team, we've explained the reasoning behind it. There is some forethought that goes into it. There's a lot of history with other major storm events that have pushed these providers to really look at diesel as their preferred alternative. It's not just Comcast, it's a lot of other emergency infrastructure clients that we have are all doing very similar things. Even the federal government is doing a lot of that federal things where they're switching over to fuel sources which they can have direct control over. As opposed to dependent upon someone else that will not guarantee when you're going to be able to get a fuel delivery or fuel turned back on. Again, we've added that third level to protect against even the most catastrophic event.
Can I just ask why that third level of protection? I mean, why wouldn't that be sized to just contain all of the fuel that's on site? Because any scenario that you could foresee that would cause a spill or a failure, couldn't it easily affect the other tank?
Again, but at what level do you stop at, reasonable? I guess that's that line in the sand. Technically by code requirements, it's the dual wall with the alarm system. It technically meets code requirements.
Okay.
The third level is almost like a value add to say above and beyond the typical code requirements, we're willing to provide 2,000 gallons of additional storage.
The generators don't run at the same time. One's redundant from each other. If one doesn't start, it goes to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
just
that doesn't
want,
really
I
have
didn't know if you
anything to do
understood.
with the fuel
Right.
containment.
From a fuel
I
capacity.
mean,
on
you
site.
use the term diminished return on investment. I mean,
Well,
what does it cost to pour a little more
But
concrete?
we could add five
No,
levels
I-
of containment. I guess that's what we're saying.
Well, I mean, if it's a 6-inch wall on a concrete pad, another 6 inches when the concrete truck.
I'm not worried about that
Yeah,
at all.
no, that's absolutely not, yes. But what's the size of the wall now? That was like 18 inches or something?
No, right now it's about 6 inches.
6 inches?
Yep.
That's what's
I mean,
proposed.
That's what's proposed,
Yeah.
correct.
So if we go up another 6 inches, will that give us the containment?
yeah.
Yes, it should.
Yeah. I mean, we can step over that
We
easy
did,
enough.
we did talk about that, what you just mentioned,
Yeah.
so that's,
I just think that people like us would say like, well, geez, why wouldn't you just contain all of it,
That's not an issue.
So it would be like another 6 inches, you said? So the thing would be a foot?
yeah, he'd be,
Yeah.
12
he'd be
inches?
You'll
12
still be able to
inches
step
high.
over it, put a stair over it, it has a couple of gates, so you just have to be able, personnel, to step over it.
50%. With that extra bermed area, what's your berm area now,
Right there.
percent? That would, or no, proposed?
It's 6 inches.
It's a roughly 6 inches on the low
Which
side.
contains what percentage of the 3,000?
Right now, it contains about 1,934 gallons. It's actually on the plan.
Which is what,
Of the
Pardon?
3,000, 1,900 of the 3,000.
right, which is what percent? It's not the 150%,
Oh,
and it's not 100%,
No.
is what we're saying. Our regulation's 150%. So you're not 100%, which would, if they both leaked under something.
Yeah.
So the question is, what does it get you to get up to at least 100%?
Yeah, 150, right.
100, I'd have to run the calc, to get 3,000, to get 4,500 gallons, is that what you're saying? How high would it have to be? I'd have to
To
run
get
the calculation.
100%, or 150.
50% is
Right.
really what we run
Yeah,
by
one-
usually.
right,
So
that's
it would have to be higher than that. I can't do it right now because it's got a sloped bottom. So it's pitched to one side.
Right,
So I know, based upon the way it's designed, on the low side, it's a 6-inch
Right.
height. So to get it to 150% times the 3,000 gallon, it may in fact be 18 inches
yeah.
on the
So
low side.
Just
The-
roughly 3 times what we have now should be more than sufficient, just easy math, right?
yeah.
18.
The town has 2 fuel tanks at each of our golf courses, and they're triple containment. The town set its bar high for itself with double wall tank and a containment, and I believe that's at what percent, Kyle? It's tank size and percent. It's a pretty high vault or berm around it.
Yeah, they have double wall tanks, first of all, so that's the secondary containment. And then the third layer is the vault, and I don't know the exact containment of the vault, but it's more than the volume of the tank. Is it exactly 150%? I can't say, but.
So
it's
we've already
the
set the
volume of
bar
tank.
high for our own
Yeah.
facilities of 150%. So I would think that we would be looking at, what is that 100, what is the 150%, how does that change your vault? The ones we have, we do not step over, right? They're high enough that I think there's a ladder in.
Right, they're close to waist high.
Yeah.
Paul, just correct me if I'm wrong, just based upon what you were saying, the tanks are never filled more than 80%, correct? So it
Correct.
wouldn't be 1,470 gallons technically.
No.
So, or even 3,000 gallons. So 150% of what's actually filled would be 3,600 gallons.
Right,
which
but
is
don't you top them off when a storm's coming? Is that what you said?
Well, 80%.
Only 80%.
You don't-
67% is low fuel, 80% is the
Why don't you go above
because,
80%?
the tank extracts and
Expansion?
expansion.
Fuel expansion in the summertime, the
Yeah.
diesel fuel expands, so we want to make sure we have enough cushion so we don't have anything overflowing.
Big time.
Yeah.
So then I guess what would be based on 80%? What's the berm area at 100% or
Yeah, I
150%?
think that's
So
what,
80% would be 3,600 gallons
3,600.
total, and we could design that berm to contain up to 3,600 gallons, which will be roughly a 12-inch berm.
And that's because of the area of the berm, too.
The area of the berm
Right.
and the pitch of the base.
Right.
And if rainwater gets in there, how do you control that?
The same way that it's being controlled presently, there are, and it is on the design plans if you look at page A1.
Yes, if you could just explain that.
There are two drains,
Just one
three
second.
actually drains.
Excuse me, sir, we just want to make sure we're looking at the right sheet of paper here. We
Page
we have
A1,
We have a
sheet
lot of
A1.
plans here.
Yep, sheet A1 has a blow-up of that view. So it's pitched from plan south to plan north, and there are three.
Again, just give us a second here.
Sure.
We have a huge stack of plans, so.
yeah, sorry.
Okay.
No problem.
This is all new to us.
Okay.
The last 5 hours probably, we all got it to look at. So let's, okay, just take your time and make sure we're on the right page.
Sure.
So, okay, so we need to be looking at A1?
The ball valves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on
We're
there.
on it.
I don't know where we are yet.
Yeah.
Those little lines. And
Called out with a note like that.
You might want to just walk up and show them.
Yeah.
You want us on A1?
Yes.
This is
Yes.
A1.
Yeah, I found one.
I have A100, is that wrong?
Yeah, yeah.
All of them.
I'm just waiting to get.
That works.
You want to just highlight it up there for them?
Yeah, we'll ask them for one.
Sorry. Yeah. Don't worry, when we make a motion, we're going to need to know what the math is. Yeah, all right, I'll rely on you for that. Mine looks like yours. Good.
Win, we win. When everybody's there.
Yes.
You can skip the trees to be removed. We're okay with that, all right? Drawings are great.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so this just shows a blow-up of that containment area. And on the plan north, you'll see that there's a call-out that says proposed 3 2-inch PVC pipes with ball drain valves to be installed in the wall to allow for drainage. So that's what's basically there now, similar setup. So basically, in a major rain event, prior to any filling, the technician will actually enter the space. If there's accumulated water, they know there's no contamination, they will open the ball valves. The rainwater will dissipate through the berm, go into the standard drainage system that's already on site, as it has today. Obviously, if they encounter any spillage, they will not open those ball valves, and they will follow the pre-approved spill containment measures that they have on site. That is, all that information has been, I believe, included in your packet and been reviewed by your agent. So that's, everything is basically pitched from this side, from high side to low side. And so this is the lower side, currently designed at 6 inches. Sounds like the final design will be roughly a 12-inch berm.
Right.
So that's, someone manually does that
That
when
is
it
correct.
rains? They check the level of water and,
Yeah, so these units run weekly, say Tuesday, 9 o'clock, 20 minutes, and they'll cool down, the next one will kick on, and a Comcast employee is writing down fuel levels and, what's he seeing, is everything okay, and so it's done weekly. that, that procedure.
When you do that weekly, is there any noise associated with that? Is it the same level of noise when you exercise your current one, or will it be louder?
No.
Will it be quieter with these new generators?
Oh, yes. Today's generators are way quiet than
Hospital enclosures is what we're going for now on all of them, yeah. Because of neighbors and stuff, we just find it easier to try and be as friendly as possible to any communities.
Well, that's my question. So you're going to be quieter and with the two generators, okay. We have not received any noise complaints, but I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be more.
No,
we get
no.
that. That's a common question.
No, that's fine.
Quieter than that.
Carl, you didn't sit down.
You
Thank
got a
you.
little brief, a little.
I wasn't sure how soon it would be until I spoke again, so.
You mentioned, actually, you keep standing there. Anyway, your health department recommendations is reference to vehicle washing. How's that relevant today?
Well, do you want him to go through all his recommendations, and then we can see if we can wrap that towards the end? Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, first is the maximum on-site storage of diesel fuel be limited to 3,000 gallons. Seems that's been decided upon, agreed upon tonight. A detailed spill containment plan must be conspicuously posted, and they have developed that plan. We have a copy, you have a copy in your packets. To skip ahead to number 4 and onward, because they'll take less discussion. No vehicle fueling is allowed, nor is it proposed. No vehicle repair is allowed. The required innovative alternative septic system reports must be brought current and submitted annually. I'm working with the facilities manager on that from Comcast. The secondary containment of 150% volume must be completed for the methanol drums that go with that IA system, and the facilities manager has assured me that will be complete. So to go back to condition 3, which I think is going to generate a little more discussion. In the Aquifer Protection District, vehicle washing is typically not allowed. In fact, it's never allowed unless it's a fully contained closed-loop system. We have a few of those in town. Now, beyond that, it's also a state requirement that commercial vehicle washing doesn't occur without a closed-loop system. Now, what I learned Comcast is doing is they have a vendor that comes in and washes their vehicles. So that essentially creates a closed-loop system. They don't have infrastructure on the property to support that, but portable items are brought in. So we just need some detail on that because, as I said, it's something that's typically not allowed. So what I'm told they do is they drive the vehicles inside a large soft-sided containment unit. And I've seen these units, they make them large enough that you could drive a semi-truck into. And then the washing is completed within this poly unit. All the wash water's contained and then vacuumed out and hauled away by the washing company once it's complete. They block any storm drains so they don't receive overspray. But as I said, it's typically not something that's allowed. It's been done at a few other facilities in town when their stationary wash system have been offline. So we're familiar with the system, but we just want to formalize this. So their facilities manager assured me he'd get me the procedure in writing so we know exactly what's occurring.
Hopefully you're not washing the trucks daily. That sounds like a big deal. Okay.
I don't know what the wash frequency
Yeah, no,
is,
I'm
but the
joking.
same
It's just-
procedure is used every time.
How often are they washed? Is that, do you know the trucks, the scheduled washing, or
I don't.
I'm sorry, that's the facility manager, he's not here tonight.
whether they run them through the car wash or something separate?
I honestly don't know. They're the big trucks he's talking about, and that's not really my area, so I don't want to comment on it.
And I'll just ask you about the septic system reports. We've asked for them before, and you're delinquent by about 5 years.
Yeah, well, we just found that out.
Yes, so you're working with somebody to get that annual
Yes.
to us and then the annual contract to us.
And Kyle, you were speaking with John Delory, I assume, about that?
Actually, with Kim.
Oh, all right, good.
Kim Willingham's working with me on that.
Okay.
So there's a bit of work to be done here.
as well as the methanol drums as well, right? That-
Yes.
Yep.
Do you have a time frame on that at all? Or once this gets approved through the Board of Appeals, is that your step to start the, well, the methanol drums really should be starting now because that's part of the septic system.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be waiting. That should be, we should get a time frame on that.
Okay, yep.
Talk to Kim or John, and I think that's easy enough.
And that's all your proposed conditions, Carl, your recommendations?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Let's take a look at one more thing, or maybe more than that. Just on your booklet here, which we received on the generator.
Transfer switches, cut sheets, it looks like you have.
This is the.
Cummings? Yeah.
This is about the specific model generators that you
Yeah,
have. This
generators
was in
and
our-
switches, yes.
Right. There's some things that looked like either highlighted or crossed off. And maybe you could take us through why that's the case. This is literature from the company that had it's been customized some way. If you look at the page I have here, it says Control System PCC 2100. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a page number on this. Let's see how many pages into this it is. Including the cover, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, there's something under options, so just curious. Let me know when you're there. This is what the page looks like. It's about page 4 or 5 into this. In the lower right-hand corner, a lot of things are either highlighted or deleted. I'm not sure. For instance, there's something about a power command remote, and either you're highlighting it or you're not purchasing it, would be my guess.
Well, the power command will be,
So there are a number of things. You see where I am, everyone in there? Yeah, so I just may give an explanation. You're customizing
the E50 control.
literature from the company.
Most electronic controller.
Yeah, electronic control, that's all that really is. It's not a remote control, is what.
Keep in mind who you're speaking with. At least for me, I have no idea what this means. Okay, so we're under options, and there are a number of things that you have green lines through.
Yeah.
So my concern is either things you're not purchasing, or that are options, or why are all these green lines there?
That's what we're getting with the generator.
But that's your decision. You're purchasing an item, so I just want some explanations what that means. For some reason, those have lines through
I
them.
think it looks like it just wasn't a clean copy of the original specs, and it includes somebody's highlighting of what they were ordering or what they didn't need.
Well, no, it's just telling us that we're going to get three relays because we have generator outputs, alarm outputs. So we'll have 10 times 3 is 30 outputs. That's what that means. The gateway that they can see it, through an IP address. Digital input and output modules. So all this stuff comes loose, and when the guy comes and installs it, he helps, he's helping my guys install all this equipment.
The factory representative.
Correct.
I didn't follow that.
These are loose pieces. When you order the generator, you have to kind of pick and choose what you want.
Yeah.
And these highlighted pieces are loose, they come loose, so we just want to make sure that we get them and it's called out.
Correct.
So if you want to know, like, better description of what they are, like the auxiliary, the first one's highlighted, LED, bar graph, AC
Maybe
data.
save some time here. This is information you're giving to who you're buying this equipment from?
Correct. To make sure that we get it.
Yes.
Okay.
He's basically just going off the standards. So something that's good.
We don't need the heater. Just the, yeah.
Exactly.
Now, somewhere here, with all these pages, I know there's some reference to a trained facility employee who's going to observe some operations here. I don't know if that's ringing a bell. Right now, I have it under page 43, where it must be in here somewhere. What I want to know how the health department will know who's going to be doing that, what's some documentation, are they trained to do that, or who's overseeing that?
So we have, for a preventative maintenance program, which is MyCom, which Paul represents the company. So they have trained and certified generator techs.
Yes.
So you'd want some kind of certificate, is what you're saying, to show that this person has been certified to work on these? Is that
standard for us or not? Do you want to know? I just want to know, does someone know who's coming in and observing something that's kind of important, that's all?
No, in regards to generators, that's never been done before by
Okay.
the health department. I'm not aware what the certifications are. The only time we've done that is in regards to like, tanks, holding tanks that are part of the infrastructure of a building.
Okay.
We've used like a professional engineer
Yes.
to certify that because they're the ones who design it. But in regards to generators, no, we haven't.
Okay.
Comcast, basically for our own, so we can all sleep well at night, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that the people working on these are certified, and we have a turnkey vendor.
There's some detailed drawings of the fence that'll be around this. Any other security measures? Are there cameras outside, or what's out there?
There are cameras outside.
Uh-huh.
Security
Great
cameras.
question. Yep.
Okay.
Lockable, lock
Fence.
gates and fences, yeah.
And there are people there just during the daytime hours or an emergency?
Correct.
Right, we need an explanation to that. I don't know what it is. That's something in the septic system. See what you find out.
Carl, we're wondering, item number 7 here for the health department recommendations.
Okay.
Secondary containment of 150% volume must be completed for the methanol drums.
Correct, yeah.
But we don't, what are the methanol drums and what?
Those methanol drums apply to the IA septic system.
Okay.
And it is a hazardous material. There's presently no containment. I had requested it previously.
Yeah.
It's not done yet. Apparently, there was some responsibility shifts at Comcast, and it kind of got lost as one manager
Okay.
left and one came in. So that's something they're going to do now.
So you're seeing that as a recommendation, not as a requirement?
Well, it is a requirement, but if we...
In this regard?
We'll try it. Yeah, it's a requirement anyway, and I am working with a facilities manager
Right.
on that. But, before we recommend this, would like that to be formalized.
I'm sure we all would.
Yeah.
Now, under Health Department requirements, number 3, it says no outdoor storage of materials is allowed. What does that make reference to?
True. So that's, this is, a component. The generator has an integral tank. The generator is meant to be outside. So that's obviously not a violation of this regulation. That applies to like temporary storage vessels. Like if someone was storing a drum of oil or antifreeze, whether it's contained or not, you can't leave it out in the weather.
Right.
Yeah, and they're not doing that. The methanol drums, too, that I referred to, those are inside a shed. So they've got the protection from weather and from vandalism. They just have to do the containment on those.
Right. Anybody here have some more questions? I mean, there's a lot here. I mean, one of the bigger issues here, that you all need to think about for yourselves, is the issue of what fuel these generators are running on. I think that's a major issue for consideration here. That's all. Risks and benefits, once again, to gas versus the liquid fuel. So just keep that in mind. Now, there's also some, besides the fence, there's some installation of some physical barriers as well, right, to prevent a truck going through this. Maybe you could take us through that in the sense of where are vulnerable spots for these tanks and what is protecting besides a stockade fence. In other words, for a truck to back up into this. Maybe you could take us through one of the drawings that you prepared. I'm sure it's here somewhere.
The A1 sheet that we were looking at earlier, the enlarged view, is basically everything that shows the entire generated area.
Yes.
Right now, it's just we're expanding the concrete berm, we're installing the fence, and the other side of the fence is the curbing, and then ultimately the generator, the dual wall generators. There is no other bollards or steel fence posts currently proposed.
Bollards, would that be something to consider here then? I mean, I'm just thinking about someone getting sloppy behind a truck.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it seems pretty vulnerable from that standpoint of view. You got some trucks coming through here
Yep.
at weird hours, especially during storms. Visibility is a problem.
So on the easterly side of where it's perpendicular to the parking, there's
Can you
parking.
just raise it up and point to it so we're with you?
So on this side here, where there's parking spaces that people come in like this, we could definitely add bollards to this side here.
Okay.
This is a parallel parking space. so
Put them
cars-
inside.
That the cars are like that. We could potentially put one in here, but it's more unlikely because it's a 10 by 23 space this way, so the car will be facing away from the fence. And then these spaces are all away from the fence. The only time a car would actually, if they drove through this space, over the berm, through the fence, over the other berm, would be this way. So we could put bollards here, down this side, similar to what we're proposing in other areas on the site.
Yeah, I saw a couple. It was more on the opposite side from more of the
We were
parking
putting
side.
some stuff in to
Yeah.
protect some electrical stuff over here, and then as part of the project, they're also installing some charging stations, which will be discussed with the ZBA process as well. And there were some bollards on the details that were shown on the same plan set to both boards, to protect that area, but those same bollards could be installed along this side here.
I mean, you see fairly large blocks of cement even when you go to get your home propane tanks.
They do not want cement.
Yeah.
We actually proposed cement and steel bollards previously, but, so they're gonna be, actually look like wood. Underneath will be cement field posts, but then there'll be a wood enclosure that'll actually go around them for aesthetics reasons.
Sure,
But yes,
absolutely.
we could definitely add them to the side of the facility without any issues.
If it pleases the board and we have the room, with no sense, we just put them on the side as well, just to make sure we're 100% protected.
This side over here, there's a lot of landscaping that in order to put the bollards, we'd have to rip that down. But
Bushes
it's
and-
it's
Yeah, I
very
just didn't
unlikely
wanna,
that, I mean,
I don't want to put, I don't want.
it's up against the building on this side over here.
How large is a bollard? I mean,
5 inches round.
How much?
5 inch? 5 inch round?
This high?
There'll be roughly probably.
Just get a
close to
sense of what it is. Yeah, how high do they stand?
Is it 5 feet?
Okay.
Could you show that on a revised plan for us for the file?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you go with
I would be
4 feet?
generous with the number. It's not a lot of cost to put them in, I'm sure. Bottom line, with what you're talking about, the investment you're making here for these generators must be a fortune, so.
Sure. Definitely do that.
Is it 4 feet or 5 foot space?
Yeah, so they're typically 5 feet center line per the NFPA, so we'll make sure those are.
Okay, so the couple issues, one, the one I just mentioned, in sense of customizing the plan, that was one. One was the size of the berm, right? That we came up with some specific numbers for. What else have we done here? Customize it? That was it, okay.
to bring the IA system into compliance.
Yeah.
Including
Right.
the methanol containment
And those are listed in the
recommendation.
recommendations here.
Right.
All right. Someone at least make a motion or
Oh, and the-
start
and
it?
the I'm sorry, the vehicle washing too. We want to know more about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get that for you.
Okay, someone want to start the motion, and we can support that person and try to see that it's complete, all right?
I could try. Got a lot.
Yeah, hey,
down
hey,
here.
man, okay. We have a taker. Take it slow, we're all going to help. This is pretty informal how we run this.
So I move that, jeez. The Board of Health grant permission,
Yeah.
jeez, to who? Who are we granting permission, Joe?
Comcast?
It's to
Comcast.
To Comcast to proceed with the,
Oh, it's okay. The plan submitted for, right, installation?
submitted for the installation.
Removal of existing generators, installation.
Well, can we just say the scope of the
Scope of work is
proposed?
included.
So probably take this
1 through
measurement
7.
and measure 5 feet and put the balls in.
Put a wall around it. You should have
Installation of new concrete generator pad.
on the outside,
Well, I don't need to list all of that,
the
right?
outside of the barn,
No, you don't.
outside the fence. We'll just cover them with wood.
For these things, no, we were talking about the plan as is, and then we're going to make some
killing me.
customization requirements.
You're killing me, guy.
Okay, so we'll be making a motion for
So we don't care about the gates.
approving, right, the proposal and what it's for,
Back it
which
even in
you
there.
just said where it is.
Okay.
I mean,
And it's going to include requirements
So-
that Carl gave, and then we're customizing it a little bit to
So
three
we could
things.
say, I'd like to make a motion to approve the scope of the proposed project, including Carl's recommendations to be in compliance with the health department, and in addition, to increase the secondary containment of the concrete slab to 150% of the tank volume,
Of the 80% of the tank.
being roughly 3,600 gallons of diesel fuel. And the addition of the installation of bollards on the north and east side of the generator slab.
To be reviewed by the health department,
Sure.
okay? All right, because we won't see those plans right now. And what else? There were three things? Someone else? We had,
The vehicle washing.
yes. Okay. So we want more information about the vehicle washing, okay? The attitude, okay? And the additional information requested concerning vehicle washing.
Okay.
I want a pen.
Christine?
Second.
You all right with that? And since hopefully there's no discussion, is there, you with us on that? You're okay? I'm impressed, okay.
Are we also including the IA system?
I think
That's
that's
the
listed.
recommendation.
Yeah,
That's in Carl's.
yeah,
Yeah.
Carl's is
Thank
great,
you.
it's complete, it's fine. So, any discussion? No, okay. So, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, okay. So we're done. You guys okay?
Yeah, we're good. Great. Thank you.
Oh, to my right.
Second.
I did.
Thank you. I guess I didn't
I
have.
think you're done.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck with the
Thanks
project.
for your time. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a little break?
Sure, yeah.
I think
Okay,
we're
you
done.
can take a break right now.
Now is the good time.
Ladies, sorry for taking so long.
Anybody home?
Carl, you're a rock star.
Yeah,
Thank you.
No, seriously.
yeah. He'll sign his books if you want to.
I mean,
Okay. All right, we're back on. Okay, everyone, okay, we're back on schedule here. So I was informed we have, I believe, some nursing students here.
Oh.
From UMass. Thanks for coming, that's great. Hopefully you're learning something. Anybody want to come up and ask questions, say something, complain about something, whatever you want? You could,
Not particularly, just,
no?
oh, thank you.
Is that a public health nursing class or what?
Yes, yeah.
Good. What else are you doing for it?
Community health project,
Uh-huh.
so we each have to do our own.
Public can't hear them, though.
Yeah.
They can't hear this terrific,
You mind coming
What
up
you doing?
and just
Just-
speaking? You don't have to say much, but just briefly.
look,
I mean, we're pretty user-friendly, I think, so.
Sorry.
You're
There you
not
go.
asking for a variance, so you're
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No, we're UMass Boston nursing students. We do a program through 4Cs, and part of our community health nursing program is to attend a board meeting for the town that we're interested in researching, so.
speak up a little, pull that in, just speak up a little bit, there you go.
So we're interested in, in the town that we're either live in or interested in doing a project in, so. And I've lived here all my life, never ever attended a Board of Health meeting, and I'm amazed at how many entities are involved with a decision. So it just kind of snowballs with everything, so.
Right.
And we're just trying to figure out how it all pertains to our subject, our topic, but it has to do with the, safe drinking water, so, in this particular case, for this particular meeting that you guys discussed, so.
If you stay another 10 minutes, there may be a couple relevant subjects that will come up in our old and new business,
Right.
if you're able to, okay? There may be some things you'll have some interest in.
Okay.
That's all, all right?
Thank you very much.
Okay, nice to have you here. Director Murphy, number 5, it says old and new business. The only thing I see listed under that is styrofoam banned in Falmouth.
But we skipped wastewater planning.
I don't think they're here tonight.
Oh, I see.
Yes, yeah, the wastewater's on hold. That's not going to be on the fall town meeting, so they're going to have it on the spring, so they're redoing some information and answering to our questions the board had raised, so we'll see them end of the year. So that brings us to your question of the styrofoam ban under old new business. You have an article in your newspaper, from the newspaper in your packet about several towns that have banned styrofoam.
I'm surprised how many.
Yes, and we have our Yarmouth Recycling Committee looking at banning styrofoam. It's something they're looking at. They'll probably bring it to the Board of Health for discussion. Right now, they're still in the educational, developing the regulation and then going to get it out to the public.
Right.
I know the Chamber of Commerce raised a question to make sure they get the education out to the businesses that would be affected. So we're still in that period, the education period to get it out there, which they need to do, Recycling Committee, because as in the plastic bag ban, they use the Board of Health as the enforcement arm. So we want to make sure that they get the education out there, as they did with the plastic bags, that makes the transition a lot easier. It's interesting how several of the towns, the lead time from when they adopted the regulation to it went into effect, some of them were almost a year to give people to go through it. So
6 months to a year.
6 months to a year. So several Cape towns have done it. A couple more are discussing it. So I would see the Board of Health meeting with the Recycle Committee probably by the end of the year for a discussion.
Yeah, it looks like P-Town, Wellfleet, Orleans, Dennis.
Right.
Yeah, some of them are just into the effective part now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Without a whole lot of resistance, I
No.
guess. There's been a lot of talk about it, so I'm sure some people are trying to get rid of the supplies.
Right, and I think they're also going to venture, or at least discuss with the board, plastics and straws. I mean, there's a lot the Recycle Committee's looking at besides styrofoam. They need to work with the schools because there's a lot of styrofoam used at the schools for in the food service area. And then the question is, you can also go into the retail stores to buy styrofoam, whether it's the styrofoam cups or you're having a cookout, so it's all the styrofoam plates and so forth. So there's a lot of other styrofoam that would be regulated or discussed. It's just not all the cups at Dunkin' Donuts that we hear about.
The other towns do that, so they don't have any styrofoam in the town at all, so they can't sell it in stores, or is it just?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I would see them recycling committee coming to the board by the end of the year.
Good,
Okay.
good to have them back. We'll try again.
Yes.
Didn't do the water ban.
Yeah, so I see them coming to the board at least once, if not twice, for discussion, meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, out into the business community with an advisory letter, and getting in preparation for probably a presentation before the Board of Selectmen as they set the warrant articles, which is usually around December, so we'll probably see them within the next month and a half.
Okay. It's September, so school's back up and running. What's happening on the vaccination front at the schools? How are we doing?
I have touched base with the Director of Nursing who we had here before to talk about inoculations and measles. They are working with the individual school nurses. There are a couple new school nurses, so they are going through all the paperwork. And I'm supposed to probably meet with her before the end of the month.
Okay, let me know.
So they know that they are looking at whether all the inoculations and especially measles for inoculations.
And when she came here, she said she was going to be looking at best practices and trying to get the school nurses together to talk
Yes.
about.
They do have it on their list. I know they were meeting to discuss that.
Good.
And I think that one of their other upcoming meetings, they'll be having myself and Phil come in there just to show them that the procedures, discussion points.
Mary, you want to bring vaping up?
Well, two things. I'm not sure you all get the Boston Globe or see it, but starting May 20th is when I first noticed this full-page ad from Juul saying it's time to raise the legal age. The next one in June, combating underage vaping. And I'm thinking, what's going on? These people make the products that, and this is taking flavored products out of stores, enhancing age verification on our website, cracking down on underage sales at retail stores, investing in new technology.
And who's putting these ads out?
Juul.
These are...
Use youth access, stepping up the fight against underage vaping. And this was the latest one that I saw, August 30th. These all predated, of course, the news that we've been hearing about the not the long-term effects of vaping that Dr. Spillane cautioned would be coming, but what we're seeing right now because of vaping and the additives, probably the additives that are going into the things that people are vaping, not just kids, but anybody who is using a vaporizing system. One of the commentators I heard say that Juul's point is to try to get the state to legislate age 21, and that would keep local communities perhaps from doing more of the kinds of things that we have been doing here with flavored tobaccos, although we didn't go ahead with a ban on the flavors and the mint and menthol and spearmint or whatever it was. But the second thing I wanted to just mention was, but I think that certainly validates what we've done so far.
Are you moving on to something else or about the
Yes.
vaping?
I wanted to move on unless somebody else has some other comments about
Yeah,
vaping.
yeah, it's just, it's changed a little bit. We were all concerned about accumulated toxicity, and there've been several deaths. I mean, and it's
Right.
from an acute exposure to chemicals. And these have been young people who have actually died. We've all been looking at the long-term concerns. You know, with an addiction, which is the problem, people do a lot of risky things. You know, if they have a heroin addiction, they get sloppy and they share syringes to save money, or they steal money from people they live with, family. That's what an addiction is about. So I don't know if people are taking a riskier route and vaping with stuff they shouldn't be. I don't know, but this is new with seeing these deaths. It's pretty scary.
And not just the deaths, but the morbidity, you know, the illnesses that people are being hospitalized with that maybe aren't killing them, but probably causing permanent damage.
To lung tissue, yes, that's exactly what's going on. It's not like a bacterial infection or a viral one and getting pneumonia. It's just toxicity from chemicals. And a lot of the young people, they've been on intubators, you know, they just can't support their oxygen levels. So I don't know, think about it. I don't know if there's anything else we can do for the town dealing with the nicotine addiction. So anyway, sorry to interrupt.
I'm wondering if given this latest news that's come out, there might be more of a response to an educational session for parents than we had the last time. I mean, I know it was a lot of work, but you know, you've done.
But we have the framework for it.
Framework,
So
and I think all of the speakers were spot on and good. So I just think that's something to think about.
Yeah, I agree. We'd have to think about what did not go well in sense of attendance. Where did it fall apart? I don't know.
I don't
but
know either.
It was a great program. Speakers were fabulous. You worked really hard on it, Bruce, and it was sad. The place was empty.
Yeah. I saw that Dr. Spillane was talking to some group somewhere, city far away from here. Anything else you wanted to say about vaping? Second thing I'm thinking about, because when I'm with my mom, we watch TV, and I see the ads for the law firms that are going after the makers of glyphosate, Roundup. Could we ban the sale of Roundup in town or glyphosate material? We can't, but you can ban styrofoam. Why can't we ban glyphosate?
we would have to look into that.
Could you look into that? Okay.
The board did not vote to restrict the use even
With,
on
on
town
the town
property.
properties. But the
Yeah.
town properties, you know, my point there was that it's being done by licensed operators and very specific
Right.
reasons and very small reasons.
Right.
These people that are coming down with lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and claiming that it's the glyphosate, these are ordinary people, citizens that aren't probably even reading the label, aren't probably taking any precautions with it, or didn't, because back then they didn't probably think much about it.
Right.
You know, they didn't know better. I'm hoping people know better now, but I'm not seeing anything out there saying, hey, have you seen those ads? And maybe you ought to be thinking about whether you should go to Agway or whoever sells it and buy the stuff and just use it indiscriminately, or however you want. So I just think that better than, you know, it's just like the plastic water bottle ban was just on town, just for town facilities and town events, and that couldn't get passed.
Right.
But people aren't dying from, you know, water in plastic bottles. It's a bigger environmental issue.
Right.
It's a whole other thing. Just a thought. I'm just interested, if you'd ask legal counsel, can we do that? It doesn't mean people will stop using it because they go to dentists and buy it, or they can go to other places, but it might make more of an impact in terms of, and of course then the town would not be able to use it either.
You know, maybe worth a Google search just to see if
And-
towns have done it.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone? sure people would like to leave and go. So we'd probably need a motion to get to that point in the meeting.
I move that we adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. Adjourned.
When's the next meeting?
Oh, next meeting. No, you're thinking
So we'll-
semi-adjourned.
Someplace, my bad. I
Yeah.
should've
Our next meetings are scheduled, or availability, if we stick with our,
Thank you. Tom's decided.
Tom's decided.
Thanks, Tom.
Let's ask him for a couple more dates.
Does he want a second?
So, if we stay with our first and third Mondays, it would be 7 and 21, and then November would be 4 and 18, both around
I won't be.
weekends. Not weekends, holidays. So we have nothing else pending in the department. Pardon?
Director Murphy, I think we may be back on.
Oh, we're
Okay.
back on.
Okay, back on to discuss future Board of Health meetings. There's no other pending septic variances, and Kyle was working with these two hazardous waste material businesses, so there is no imminent rush of people coming to the board. So it's up to the board what you wish to do. We're spending right now a lot of time getting ready for the Seaside Festival and getting some plans done and so forth, so I would say if we don't have a big push, we just go right to the 21st. Was that a date that you had a difficulty with?
No, it was the 7th, so that was.
So that would help.
lovely.
That would help one of the board members.
We always want to do that, right? Help each other. All right, the 21st. Okay.
And then we can make a determination there of November.
Yeah, okay. Just send some emails, any updates, what's going on
Yes.
with what we did tonight.
Yes.
Making any progress. I mean, those are some major issues.
Yes.
And since we're still on, any progress in getting an assistant director here for the health department?
It's still working its way through. It has gone now to the Personnel Board. The union approved some wording changes in the job description, very minor. And now it's before the Personnel Board, and I have to find out when they meet next. It's been a little slower than I had anticipated.
Would it help if we submitted a recommendation?
I will let you know.
Okay.
I mean, you're
Yes.
swamped. I mean,
Yes,
so we gotta
we're
get
getting behind on permits,
Yeah, I
septic
know.
permits, and inspections are fine because we can keep up with them. It's just the permits that are coming in quicker than we can get out with other stuff that we've got
We can talk
planned.
about it, see what,
Yes, we can meet afterwards on that.
I think for the board.
Yes.
And maybe help you out with
Yeah.
that. So there have been no interviews at this point.
No, we're not even out, we're not even out to have,
Description, I mean, you know.
we're not posted. But I will say, our summer intern for housing has worked out terrific. It's really helped the housing inspector conduct more housing inspections, follow up on things, and has worked out terrific, and we've asked for an extension of that program. That was a recent graduate from UMass Amherst Public Health that just graduated that we had working for us this summer. That's been terrific.
Okay. Anyone want to make a motion for adjournment number 2? We don't usually do this, all right? So, come on, somebody.
My bad. I move we adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you.
for real.
For real this time.